I'm the person who has seen this show before.
I'm a person who's never watched an anime.
HiroBabble, we are HiroBabble. HiroBabble, we are HiroBabble. Hey, hello and welcome back to the HiroBabble podcast. I'm your host, Michael.
And I'm Spencer.
And ladies and gentlemen, we've made it. We are at the finish line. This is the finale, episode 26 of our Evangelion series. There have been highs, there have been lows, particularly last episode lows.
Yeah.
Episode 4 lows, if you will. Episode 14 lows. But for as many lows, there were double that in highs. And truthfully, I don't know. It's just cool to kind of be at the tail end of it all.
It is really cool to be here at the end. I went back and looked through a bunch of my ratings for all the episodes leading up to this.
I realized I never wrote any of mine down.
I was able to pull an average for my scores for the show that I'll reveal at the end.
At the end. Don't fast forward, though.
But it was interesting to see how I started versus how I finished, because I think by the end of the show, I was a little bit more skeptical about certain things. And at the beginning, I was just so wowed by everything.
Yeah.
That I was given really high scores to, like, everything.
Yeah.
And, like, even episode 4, I gave a 7.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was, like...
That was the lowest.
That was a bad score.
That was the lowest we had gone.
And then, like, I look at episode 24, which I gave a 6.5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that episode was probably everything that I would have wanted back when I saw 4.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to see where I went. Yeah.
Yeah. I really can't remember a lot of my... I know I gave a handful of 10s out, though. I know I gave episode 4 a 10.
Yeah.
I know I gave... Was it 19 a 10? I don't know. I wish I would have written some of these down. For you fans out there who have been cataloging our every word, I'll leave that to you guys. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, me and you both gave episode 10 and 19 10s.
Yeah, those were great episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, here we are, episode 26, and without further ado, I'm just gonna turn the floor over to Spencer, and I want to hear what you thought, because I have a lot of thoughts, but that comes with having seen this before and kind of knowing what I'm getting into.
Right. I think everybody that listens to this show that heard our conflicting thoughts about episode 25 knew exactly where episode 26 would go.
Yeah.
And so I think this episode has some more redeeming qualities than 25. And I think a lot of it has to do with the timing and the placement of this episode versus watching 25 back-to-back with 24.
Yeah.
So, that being said, though, it's a little bit sad to end this show, honestly.
Yeah.
I am extremely excited for the rebuild movies, or whatever. I think you've been saying rebuild.
Yeah.
And so, really excited for that. But I am excited to tell all of you my thoughts on this episode, because I think they're valid. And in rewatching or re-listening to our last 2 episodes of HiroBabble, I definitely feel like I can give a little bit more ground to 25.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think re-listening to it, kind of hearing better what you have to say, in a situation that's not like while we're podcasting.
Yeah.
I think you do shed some good light on the character moments. And I think in the moment of 25, I was just so sad that the plot, like the major plot is, points were over, and we are now really diving into the character development.
Well, and rest assured, you by no means are the only person that has ever felt that way.
Yeah.
Like, believe me, you are in, if anything, I would almost say, I don't know if it's a 50-50 split, but
yeah,
a lot of people very much share that same sentiment, where it's kind of like, things are building, shit's getting real crazy, and then it's like, let's get weird with it, you know, like very
Right.
like it's very experimental. It's, you know.
Yeah. I remember you telling me in like one of the very first episodes, probably the pilot episode
Yeah.
of this, that that the ending of this show, it was mixed.
Episodes 25 and 26 were kind of the episodes that either you watched those and you fucking hated it,
Yeah.
or you really liked it. There was very little room to kind of like find a middle ground, and it's a lot of the people that didn't like it. Granted, I think throughout this series and throughout us watching it, you know, the whole idea of like getting the fucking robot Shinji doesn't hold up. I think when this came out,
No.
you know, in like the time frame, sure, I think it was a little bit more poignant, but I don't think anyone could watch this show today and go, unless, hey, I mean, I'm not gonna say, you know, maybe someone out there isn't dumb enough to think that it's just they're getting the robot Shinji.
If you really want it to be, then I
Sure.
can see why that would happen. But if you're actually watching this show with like an open mind
Yeah.
and seeing what they're gonna give you, I think you'd get over that pretty fast.
You could honestly probably keep that mentality up until maybe episode 19. Once episode 19 happens,
Yeah.
you really, unless you just are like closing your eyes and your ears and you're saying I watched it,
Yeah.
I don't think you could really maintain that it's a robot show anymore.
Yeah. Unless you work for Zele.
Yeah, Beyblades.
Beyblade.
But yeah, so in truth, episode 25 and 26 are very like it's an experimental way.
It really is.
That's like, and of course that's you know the critics' way of saying like, yeah, it's fucking weird
It is weird.
to make such a tonal and just like hard pivot from sci-fi dystopian action to let's talk about mental health and and sense of self and self-worth and identity.
Yes. And even this episode hard pivots like halfway through.
Oh yeah, dude. Absolutely.
So
It breaks the fourth wall halfway through where Shinji is holding a storyboarding notebook
yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, so this could have been like a thing?"
Right.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah. This episode is bonkers, dude.
Yeah, I will say, a lot of people said that, oh, the episode was bad because of budget, or they didn't finish it in time. No, I mean, Ono had a history of getting episodes in right under the wire,
Right.
but in every interview, in every instance, he has defended this ending and his vision for it tooth and nail. Like, the guy is unwavering. He wanted to make it. He liked what he made. And I think that everything you see is a very poignant artistic choice. It's not like someone just went, fuck. Oh, we have no money. Just show a still picture of, like, concept art Shinji.
Well, that really shows. I mean, it shows. We talked about this in our discussion at 25. That it's not like they're phoning it in.
No.
Because the amount of character development they do in this show is more than you'd get in like 7 seasons of television with a lot of shows.
Absolutely.
So like they're like overwriting these characters.
And not only that, they're not just writing characters to exist. They are critiquing the character in plain sight. Like it's not like and I think I said it last episode. It's not conjecture. It's this is the character we wrote. They are a flawed character. This is why they are flawed, but in those flaws, people can relate to them. Like, there's so much I could go on, but I interrupted you. But yeah, pretty much like you said, people either loved or just did not like these last two.
I think that the reason that people dislike this, and I think myself included, is that it is the 25th and 26th part of this 26-part saga. And I almost feel like if they had ended the show, like if they could go back in time, and 24 be the finale, and then they release this like human instrumentality project like special, that's like an hour-long special, Because then people get their finale.
End of Evangelion is.
Well, yeah. Because then people get their, like, plot finale,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get, like, just extra. And the extra is this really deep dive into the characters, and I think that, honestly, people, and myself included, and given I didn't watch this when it came out,
Yeah.
but might have thought, like, oh, that's really cool that they're giving us this, you know, but the fact that 25 and 26 are, like, the penultimate and ultimate episodes,
Yeah.
I think people had certain expectations
Yeah.
of those, and that's why they fall short.
Well, and you have to think of the time this came out, too. I know I said it in episode 1. This was the golden era of mech anime.
Sure.
And at the end of every mech anime, you're expecting a bombastic fight. And in truth, episode 24 sets up what is essentially like this penultimate moment where Shinji has just killed the last angel.
Uh-huh.
Everything the series has been working towards is finally coming to a head. And then instead, it goes through a case analysis of each of the main 4 cast members.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and that's the thing. One thing I never want to be is the guy that's like, I fucking loved this, and if you didn't, I get it. I so get it.
Yeah.
And there are even moments, too, where I can empathize, because in episode 26, they allude that there is something going on outside of this, like, mental, therapy session, because they show still frames of it. They show, like, all of this crazy stuff going on outside, but you don't get to see it.
Right.
I mean, you do in End of Evangelion. You get to see.
I haven't seen it yet.
But I mean, it's cool that we didn't have to wait couple years until that ending came out.
Yeah.
But still, I'm getting ahead of myself.
No. I mean, really, we're at the end here, so
that is true.
Discussion is important. This definitely didn't ruin the show for me by any means.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
No, and actually, I really respect that they did this.
Yeah. It's fucking ballsy.
Yeah. I respect it, actually, a lot. And
Yeah.
I think that when, from hearing from you what kind of... You said it was Hideaki Anno or something?
Yeah, Hideaki Anno.
Hideaki Anno. So, like, his vision and really what he wanted this show to be, if that's what he wanted, like, I'm all about that.
Yeah.
I'm all about, like, making your vision happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if that was his vision, respect.
Yeah.
And, if I don't like it, then who cares?
Yeah.
On to the next one.
Well, and that's kind of what's crazy, and it's interesting to look at it rather than as one thing, but the sum of its parts. I mean, You've got a really interesting premise, but you also have a creator who is extremely depressed and is navigating that depression. And I think, I'm not going to say specifics, but to my knowledge and reading up on this, what happened was a friend of his gave him a psychology book in an attempt to kind of help him navigate what he was going through. He gave him that book halfway through the series. And the original 2 ideas for episodes 25 and 26 were scrapped in favor of these.
Sure.
Those 2 episode ideas would go on to create End of Evangelion.
Oh, nice.
But
is End of Evangelion literally just the ending?
It's kind of like it was. Yes.
Don't spoil anything, but is End of Evangelion a retelling of the entire show?
No. It's essentially, you have the TV ending, and then you've got the Evangelion ending in kind of this timeline split.
Yeah.
So, if you watch the television show, and you get to episode 26, and the end resolution is Shinji learns to love himself.
Yeah.
And those around him that saw his worth as a person congratulate him for it.
Yeah.
Now, what would happen if none of that happened?
Right.
And so that's... And in truth, that was the trajectory it was going on. So I think it's really cool that the guy who was really battling his own mental health decided to take these really complex characters that he wrote and break them down. And in a way, I think he also was breaking himself down, kind of navigating what he was going through. And the end is, I think, kind of a, you could say it's like only about the characters, but I think that there's probably some personal, you know, hey, I navigated this by myself. Like,
Yeah.
I don't hate myself anymore, which is cool.
It is cool.
And so to me, that's like... But again, that's a lot of background that, sure, makes the end episode, wow, okay, that is really fucking deep. But if you look at it just on the surface, it's very easy to see why people were maybe like...
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to see a big robot fuck some shit up again.
I mean, we'll get into it, but I didn't even want to see a robot fight. I mean, we got a good fight in 24, and we've seen the robots fight like a million times.
Well, not only, I feel like the last really good fight we got was 19.
Yeah.
19,
Dude, yeah.
19 just kind of fucking says, all right, you guys want budget? All right, we're gonna make fucking Shinji have a psychotic breakdown.
You guys thought we weren't working overtime this week? Well, think again.
We're working overtime every week, bitch. Because
Yeah.
the Japanese animation industry is absolutely fucked.
Exactly.
Our director went to the hospital. He's back after 2 hours.
Right.
Because the show has to air. That's a real thing.
He's not even getting paid.
Yeah, he gets paid 2 nickels every morning. That's it.
That's just for breakfast, lunch.
Yeah, no dinner.
No dinner.
Because we work through dinner.
Exactly.
Yeah, anyways, guys, if you like anime, buy Blu-ray releases. That's the best way to support your favorite studios and creators. Anyway.
Really?
Yeah, that's the whole reason I have manga or anime volumes and stuff is like that's the most direct line to support, you know, the animation studios that make all of this cool shit. So
Yeah.
I'm always like, take my money.
Turn that nickel into a dime.
But not on the company's time.
Of course not.
Unless you're shitting. Absolutely Hey, you make a nickel, the boss makes a dime, always shit on company time.
Exactly.
Them's the rules. Anyways, back onto the... But so
let's
you
dig
were,
into that.
Yeah. So you were saying you weren't even expecting like a huge robot fight.
No, I was expecting, instead of what we got in 25 and 26,
Mm-hmm.
I personally would have liked to see more time spent with Kaoru
Yeah,
and that whole ending.
that's fair.
And then maybe see some plot dig into, okay, what are these characters doing after the final battle? Where does Shinji go? Where does Masato go? Where does, what happened to Toji Kensuke? How does, where's Kaji in all this? I want to know, like, those types of questions.
Show me his dead body.
I just want that, like...
I want proof.
Yeah. I don't know. I just wanted the, like, visual closure
Yeah.
that, like, either shit is fine or shit is still mysterious or everything's gone to shit.
Yeah.
And instead we got this, like, Kingdom Hearts ending. And like, believe me, like, I love those games, so...
Oh, bow, 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 bow. Depression, bow, bow, bow.
So, like, I'm okay with it, and I get it, but I wanted to see more, like, character interaction moments rather than, like, really diving deep into their inner AT fields. And
I mean, we did see interaction moments.
we did. We did.
So, okay, what were like some peaks and valleys of
Okay.
the episode for you?
Well,
you really did write 6 lines.
No. Hey, this is art. I was immediately pissed that it was just 25, but
Shinji.
But Shinji, and like diving even further into that.
Yeah.
I wrote down a line where it's talking. Everybody's basically telling Shinji it's okay to run away.
Yeah.
Like that sequence really I thought was fucking powerful.
Yeah.
Because really that's what everybody's been bitching to him about all show long, and that he runs away from his problems.
Yeah.
And like that he's not strong.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see him kind of starting to be strong and deal with himself,
Yeah.
I thought was really cool. And everybody's telling him it's okay to run away, and it's just like him dealing with that.
Yeah.
Like that kind of shit was really interesting. And like I'll admit, while it's not what I wanted to see in my finale,
Yeah.
they ask good questions.
Yeah.
Like they aren't asking like, what did you eat for breakfast?
Mm-hmm.
And like they're asking tough stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's not entertaining.
Yeah.
I really liked that. I wrote down a line here where someone says, we must complete one another through instrumentality.
Yeah.
And why they want to do that is because we won't survive. Because we won't survive it if we do not do so. And I think that's Gendo that says that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted your thoughts on that.
Because, what is instrumentality?
Well, do you like that the show chose to end with this whole, we need to work together to make ourselves one mind? And
So, the whole concept of instrumentality is very weird to me. Because the show kind of explains it, and essentially what happens is the Lilim, which are humans,
yeah.
The whole premise is that, we aren't strong, like our bones are brittle, our skin can, get cut.
Sure.
The only thing about us that is strong is our soul. And to ascend to a higher level of existence, all of mankind's souls need to combine. And that is what instrumentality is. Any weaknesses that a soul might have can be compensated for by the strength of another. And so that's the whole premise, is that, kind of like Gendo says, because we can't do it on our own, that's why we have to combine. And
right, but what are they combining to do?
Just ascend. That's like the whole thing.
So did they just become husks at that point?
Well, that's the thing. In that sequence where Shinji is just floating.
Yeah.
They're by combining souls, they remove any restrictors that would have existed in the confines of reality as we know it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like godhood, pretty much, and that's why like Seele, is kind of saying, yeah, we need to get instrumentality so we can become gods, we can become greater.
Right.
Gendo, while it never explicitly states it, I mean, the guy is basically doing it for his own means. What would his own means be? To see his wife again. Like, that's his motive. Whereas Sele's like, we'll become gods. Gendo's is, I want to see my wife. And if we all transcend into one soul, that's combined, I'll get to see her. Because I will not be constricted by the confines of reality. That's like his whole thing. So my whole thing is, if you look at it like at an abstract level, it's fine. But the minute you start going, so when this happens, what happens to the world around it? Like, do we cease to exist? Does the world just go empty? And so that's
what I want to know. Like, is there just now corpses on the ground that are just like husks without a soul? And there
are answers, but I am gonna withhold those. But basically, if you just look at instrumentality, that's always been the goal, and the end result is everyone sharing that like consciousness, because they're all one. Does that make sense?
Well, that's just what Shinji needs, is more thoughts in his head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, but the thing is, though, as he navigates this, for the longest time, Shinji has been navigating these problems on his own. And as soon as he would make progress, he's always the first one to kind of knock himself down a peg.
Yeah.
And so in this sequence, you basically watch, because the way I interpret instrumentality is and you see it through this episode, it's that you can be strong on your own. There is pain that can be endured so long as you're honest with yourself about what that pain is. But you also are able to better get a sense of self by how others, see you. And so, because Shinji views everyone as hating him, he in turn hates himself. But that's all his own doing. And so, because, he creates that mental block. But to me, the concept of instrumentality is people who are around you can be strengths to your weaknesses, and you in turn can do the same for them. Mm-hmm. And, it's good to have people that you can rely on, and people that can prop you up when you can't, and vice versa. So I don't know. That to me is, I like the concept, because it's basically saying, take care of yourself, and you can take care of others, and those you take care of will take care of you. If that makes sense.
It just feels like they're putting all their eggs in one basket.
Meaning, like, the idea of instrumentality?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's my true problem with it. Is, and, like, the rebuild movies completely fix this problem.
Because, like, it's not like... The episode doesn't really make it clear
what happens,
why they're trying to do that.
Yeah.
And, like, they talk Human Instrumentality Project also, like, they throw that name out there.
Yeah.
Like, several times up until you get to the end of the show.
Yeah.
So, like, you know the words by the time they say it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, like, is this happening, like, metaphysically, like, in Shinji's mind and in Asuka's mind? Or is this, like, happening... Is there actually, like, a studio with a light and this is happening?
I think that's, like, the... that's where it kind of gets fourth wall breaky.
Yeah.
Is that... In the context of, like, the universe of Evangelion... it gets really blurred, like what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And I think the goal that 25 and 26 attempt to take is that the whole show they've been talking about the third impact and what happens and all of this, but then it goes into like a psyche breakdown, and I think the whole point of showing the studio and the storyboard notebook and all of that is to say that, you know, we've been watching these characters through a preset storyline and a timeline and watching them navigate themselves, but with all of that stripped away and all of the like backdressing, like, you know, pushed to the side, these characters are on their own. How, you know, how would they navigate these problems? And so I don't know. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
And I realize I'm not answering your question, but it's...
Well, it's there. I'm asking impossible questions. I
mean,
well,
like, End of Evangelion is the more direct answer to what you're talking about. So I'm really trying hard to keep it contained. And Rebuild completely ditches both ideas and is like...
Because, like, this show for 24 episodes...
Yeah.
Is a show.
Yeah.
And like it's an animated show.
Yeah.
But they're telling us the story of like a real fleshed out world.
Yeah.
And like we're watching it, so we know it's just a TV show.
Yeah.
But then this episode starts to insinuate shit that like, well no, Shinji is actually just a colored pencil sketch. He doesn't even exist in a real world.
Yeah.
This whole show is just a show.
This whole show could have been a slice of life show. And all of these characters could have never had to deal with any of this.
Yeah, like, they're basically saying, like, yeah, like, this life was really hard for him. But, like, he could also just be, like, a drawing.
Yeah.
And, like, we've just been fucking around with him for...
Like we as the creators are the ones that put the constraints and the restrictions on what a character can or cannot do.
Well, I kind of dug that section because, just like you're saying, it's like, in the show, the characters play God. And then, in this episode, it's like the creators of the show play themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so many levels of mindfuckery.
We can go deeper.
it really is like, I'm like, wait a second.
What?
Is he watching me?
Yeah.
You know, it's like some of the weirdest stuff, that like sketchbook sequence that you keep referencing.
Bro,
that was awesome.
That scene when Gendo says, I think it's like, and you can even change like your shape of self or your sense of form. And then it cuts to this beautifully animated spread of a constantly like fluid changing object, like Shinji turns into paper, and then he turns into a blob, and then bones, and and it goes through this full spectrum of shape and form, and then it ends with just him. And I just was like, holy fuck. How could anyone say that they ran out of budget when they popped that on the screen?
Yeah, no, they definitely didn't.
That alone probably cost more than some of the more, like, involved Evangelion scenes.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of frames you would need to make it look that smooth, unreal.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, you're right. It basically goes from we are viewers watching this show. And then the characters in the show are like, we're going to ascend past godhood. And the creators are like, they can ascend all they want, but we get the final say. Which is why I think that Shinji's final revelation in that last 2 minutes, where he's like, I don't have to hate myself. I love myself. And
right.
I love the people around me. The people around me make me feel worthwhile. I think that is the author directly, or not the author, but the creator directly going, I have found my sense of self-worth, and Shinji has too.
Yeah.
And then that's why everyone around is saying, hey, congratulations. Like, you did that. You've arrived at self-love.
It was just such a meta way to do that. Because, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, but going from 24 to this is a fucking huge leap. And it's ballsy, but it's a big ask for a regular viewer who just wants to see some robots beat the shit out of these weird-looking angels to say, do you hate yourself?
Yeah.
What if you loved yourself?
Right.
Think about that.
This episode is like... It's like if you're watching a movie, and then at the end of the movie, the character in the movie looks in a mirror, and then in the mirror is the director and the camera filming the movie, and then they turn around and they're just on a set.
Yeah.
And that's this episode.
That's the best description I think I've ever heard of it.
It is like the weirdest thing.
Also, I would love a slice of life anime with these characters.
Yeah.
That fucking, like, what is it, even 6 minutes? Where it's just them, like, going to school.
Oh, so the whole, like, instrumentality part of this.
Yeah.
Is like 14 minutes and 23 seconds.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, like, this alternate universe.
Yeah.
Where, like, Gendo and Yui are a couple.
Yeah,
and,
like
he's
Yumi's
reading
still
the newspaper.
alive. Like, Shinji and Asuka are living normal lives.
Yeah.
Rei emotes and has a personality, which is very weird to see.
Yeah.
It still weirds me out to this day.
They do some, like, weirdly sexual things here where they do, like a morning wood scene with Shinji.
Where Asuka's like, ew! What? I didn't mean to wake that up. And he goes, it's the morning. I just have to piss. And she's like, oh, don't point it at me. And then, like, when they're running to school and they crash into Rei and he, like, looks at her panties and he's like, nice. And then they get to school and Kensuke and Toji are like, so did you like to see your panties? And he goes, well, it wasn't long, but a little bit.
They're all talking so weird.
Yeah.
And then, because then Rei's like, they introduce Rei as the new student. She's like, you looked at my underwear!
And he's like, And then Asuka goes, well, it's your fault for flashing him.
Yeah.
And he's like, it was only for a little bit. And then it cuts to the, like, still, like, kind of colored in frames. But also, dude, when Teacher Masato shows up.
Oh, yeah. They were like, redo that scene from... Because what episode did Shinji... They're basically redoing, like...
Episode 1.
Yeah. It is just... Yeah, she rolls up. Everybody's like... I loved seeing Kinsuke with his camera.
Yeah, and he's like recording and Toji goes, oh my god, she's so hot. And then she just throws up the pieces and all the guys are like, yeah! And then it cuts to Asuka and the class rep going, look at the Three Stooges.
Right.
And then Rei also makes a comment when Asuka goes, it's your fault for flashing him. And she goes, what are you so mad for? Are you riding his baloney pony?
Oh my god. It's just like the writers... I don't know what the fuck happened, but they were like, okay, we need a B-plot for this crazy instrumentality episode. All right.
Everyone's horny.
Let's write a really sexually charged
slice of life bit.
Yeah. That was really fun though.
Yeah.
That part was really that had no purpose to be in the finale of this show.
No.
But I mean, I liked it.
But it's basically the setup to that fourth wall break where they're like, it cuts to Shinji reading like the storyboard notes and he's like, so this could have been another option?
Yeah. they open up the whole alternate universe idea, which I think is kind of a saving grace.
Oh, yeah.
Because then
it allows them to go, well, we've got plenty of other options here.
And I almost feel like that was a last-minute decision that, hey, let's add in that slice of life bit and then change up kind of the world and then have Shinji kind of do this crazy thing. Because then we can, if people hate us, then we can fix it.
While I don't think they sat around the writer's room and went, if people fucking hate us, please give us an out. But I think that it was to set up, because they had planned on End of Evangelion before these episodes came out.
That's good to know.
Because 25 and 26 were completely different initially. And then Anno came in and was like, fuck it. I want to have a therapy session with all of the characters.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay. But people are going to throw bricks through our windows and spray paint death threats on our building and write you letters saying you should off yourself.
I think that, like, the problem is that when you're this far into the show, you know that Shinji's depressed. It's like, Shinji hates himself. In other news, water's wet.
Yeah. And,
like, at this point, it's like, you already know that. And they've done enough to make you care about him.
Yeah.
Like, an alternate universe Shinji where he's happy and isn't the Shinji that we know is not interesting.
Yeah.
The Shinji that we have is perfect.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, the meta character can't see that he's perfect until maybe the end of the show.
But then I would ask you to ask yourself the question, if it followed course, if these two episodes didn't exist, instrumentality happened, Shinji would probably have to pilot the Eva and fight, the series would end, and obviously if everything was tied with a pretty little bow, Shinji would come to the same conclusion. But how would he come to that conclusion? In that beginning stretch of the episode, the question they hammer on over and over and over again is, why do you pilot the Eva?
Yeah.
Why do you do it? And he's like, well, because, like, that's... people, like, depend on me. Sure. And if they depend on me, they can't hate me. And if they can't hate me, then I can be proud of myself.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, is that it? That's why you do it? Like, you depend on others to feel worth? And it's Asuka who is basically the counterpoint to that, where she's like, you do not want that to be your identity. Because if you lose that, you lose yourself. And Asuka is like the shining example of what happens, because then they ask her the question, why do you pilot? And she's like, because it's all I have. That's all I've ever known. It's all I can have. It's all I want. It's all I can be. And then it's like, well, if you lose that, then you lose everything. And she's like, I have lost everything. And it's, to me, and it's what really reiterates that ballsy point. Because every other shonen, battle, mech, whatever, would have, unless it was like maybe Gundam, because Gundam would have said, well, yeah, he did pilot it, but he also committed war crimes. Who really won here? In war, nobody wins. Right. Like, they would have gone that route. If it was like a shonen, Shinji would have powered up and he would have like had the power of friendship and wanting to save everyone, and then he would have beat it, and then he would have been like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not half bad. Whereas with this, it's kind of like, if you take all of that away.
Let me work through this.
Yeah.
Because I have a couple things here.
Yeah.
The meat of your question is, if we strip the instrumentality part from the show. Yeah. You strip the beats all the way back to the beginning. Yeah. I think that they would have to work around it. Because it's a fine line, right? Yeah. What makes this show so compelling is the characters. Yeah. It's not the mechs.
It's not the mechs.
It's the and it's not even the Avas. It's the characters. Yeah. So if you strip the depressed, working through the feelings part from this show, it's fucking a carbon copy of everything else that's mediocre. Exactly. So you need that still. Yeah. But it's the fine line of needing that. I think that they could have stripped the human instrumentality thing, because really, it's tough to even know what the fuck's going on there anyways. Yeah. they could have had, it would have been kind of corny. They could have made Shinji just somehow, in the final battle, he now understands that he has fucking friends and that his life's okay. But like that wouldn't have been that satisfying either.
Well, the way I could have seen it is had they not gone end of Evangelion route, and nothing I'm saying is alluding to how that plays out, and they ditched this. They could have easily written in a moment where Shinji's in like the final confrontation, the third impact has happened, Adam shows up or whatever, because like you could keep human instrumentality, but Adam shows up to stop it, and then it becomes a battle between Shinji and Adam on like the fate of humanity, whatever. In that fight, Yui shows up. She regurgitates that line from a few episodes ago where because Shinji exists, he is special, and that's important.
Yep.
He's fighting, he's trying to break through the AT field. His mom shows up, says that, and then he's like,
oh, yeah.
And then he breaks through, and he fucking beats the shit up out of Adam, and Adam's like, I'm a god. And then Shinji's like, the only god I worship is self-care. And then, like, kicks the shit out of Adam. And then, like, because Adam dies, everyone around him that died comes back to life. And, you know what I mean?
I actually would have loved that. That is...
Hideaki Anno, hire me, brother.
Great, actually. I don't... you don't have to resurrect the dead, but I mean...
Well, but that's the thing. I feel like when you're playing with gods,
yeah,
they could have been like, the Lilim have surpassed Adam and now have ascended to godhood without instrumentality.
Or like if Shinji found out that he's a god.
Fuck, dude. Well, I mean, the way they position the Evas, the Evas are basically essence of Adam. And that's why they're effective at killing the angels, because angels are also essence of Adam. And so, you square up this final fight, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna kill God.
Yeah.
But not before he gives us our money back. It's like,
right.
They could have easily gone that route. End of Evangelion is kind of another side of the coin, and this episode is like the abstract, like, older brother that went to art college and, like, still lives in mom's basement. Like, that's not in a bad way, but I'm just saying, could have gone 3 different ways, and they chose this one.
Yeah, but they could have done it.
They could have.
They could have still had their emotional ending.
Yeah.
Not pissed anyone off. Although, people get pissed off at no matter what.
But see, that's the thing. You mentioned that, like, the characters are the big draw.
Yes.
At the end of the series, sure. But I would have a real tough time, I think, really meeting anyone that would have been like, oh, I love Shinji.
Totally.
Before he got into Eva 1.
Yeah.
Because even in Eva 1, he is kind of bitch-made.
Well, yeah.
But the end of, but the way episode 2 plays out with fucking Eva 1 ripping the shit out of that angel.
Yeah.
I'm sure drew a lot of people in because they were like, whoa.
Savage, bro.
That's fucking sick. And then he's like, familiar ceilings. Like,
you're like, oh!
Fuck, we were so close. But, yeah, it's this whole... At the end of the day, it's a ballsy decision.
I like it. I mean, I like I said, I don't like this episode, but I respect this episode.
I think there are so many great one-liners in this episode, too. Yeah. I even wrote a lot of them down.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So, my first note was Cruel Angel Thesis for one last time. I finally listened to it when I watched this episode with the subtitles on for what it's saying. It is a depressing song. The tone does not match what is being said. It's like the sad boy sees death through the angel's eyes or something like that. I'm like, my God.
Have you ever watched the end credits of the Netflix version?
No.
So they basically just take it's nothing like that. They take a depressing song from that like they would use in the show, and they just play that.
Oh, that's lame.
End. Yeah, but
what I did love is during that last stretch where Shinji's like having the realization moment, it's playing like Cruel Angel's Thesis on the piano. I thought that was such a nice touch, because it's like, yeah, it's an upbeat song, even if the lyrics might not fit, but it fits so well with Shinji going like, I love myself, like I want to exist.
What was kind of crazy to me is that Cruel Angel's thesis almost sounds kind of like the HiroBabble theme song.
Whoa!
You know what I mean?
We could sue.
I think we could.
We're taking them to court.
No, I agree. It was
Dun,
cool
dun.
to hear that.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice touch.
Yeah.
So
what other quotes you got?
I can disappear because I am not worthy of existing. Shinji. Which I think is followed up by like Gendo. These aren't necessarily in order. Some of them are, but I just kind of wrote them as I was watching. Mankind cannot live without being surrounded by others. Instrumentality needs all of humanity's souls into one. And then there's like are you happy being alive? And then I think the response to that was, as long as you know what the pain is, it can be endured, which I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And then when Shinji is like, it just hurts, and then someone goes, you're not the only one who gets hurt, Shinji. Kind of saying like, you're not alone in this, but also you're not the only one that goes through pain, but you also don't have to be the only one who navigates that pain.
Yeah.
Which I liked. Don't believe that by not expecting anything, you won't get hurt either.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good line. I just wrote, I hate myself. Because I think that is Shinji. Shinji, I think, doesn't necessarily say that ever. Until it gets to this point where he's being hammered about why do you pilot the Eva. He's like, I hate myself. Okay?
He's the viewer.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, I also wrote, as a side note, I think the episode does an amazing job at instilling how quickly the feeling of self-hatred can lead into a person spiraling into self-loathing.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of the comments Asuka makes, and Ritsuko really says, like, depending on others, again, that's your coping mechanism, that's pathetic. Right. And then Shinji's like, well, what do you want me to do? It's better than just running away. And I think Asuka goes, running away? From what? Like, from those that want to help or, like, be there for you or, And then she's like, how is anyone supposed to help you if you just keep running away from them? Yeah. But depending on them at the same time. And it was like, damn, bitch.
Yeah.
It is crazy because Asuka is very much going through what would happen if Shinji wasn't having this moment. So it's very cool hearing her, basically, as all of mankind's souls have combined, basically saying, like, don't end up like me, fucking dumbass. Like, I'm living this. You don't have to. And I just think that's cool.
Definitely.
And then when he basically says, like, everybody hates me, and then it's like, no, that's just what you imagine. And then Shinji goes, everyone has to hate me if I hate myself. And then I think Ray says, Ava 1 or Ava Unit 1 is part of your sense of being. And he goes, well, yeah, people are proud of me, stuff like that. And then, so this is one thing I wrote down. And I think the reason it hones in on Ray, Asuka, Shinji, and Masato is it focuses on, I think, 4 different themes. Ray grapples with the idea of sense of self and sense of being.
Yeah.
Her whole arc through the show is, I do exist, I am human, I'm not a clone, I am me, and I exist. And I think that all of her comments through this moment are basically coming from the perspective of, you are getting your sense of self from other places other than you being. And I think that's cool. Asuka's is the sense of identity and self-worth. Well, I'm going to nix self-worth. I don't think that necessarily applies. Sense of identity, though. She gets her identity from being an Ava pilot, but when that gets taken away, she has nothing.
Yeah, and no one to turn to.
Exactly, because she views the only directive as being, I need to be an effective pilot, and as long as I have that, I don't need anyone, because I hate everyone. I hate everything, and I'll hate myself if I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
Shinji represents, like, self-hatred, and like kind of self-loathing, and Misato, I think the reason I cross out self-worth is I think Masato embodies the ideals of self-worth.
Yeah,
and the lengths at which people go to find that. Which is why when she gets roasted or raked over the coals by everyone about, how she finds solace in men and, and then Kaji gets brought into it and she goes, no, Kaji's like the one thing that I sought out because I thought, I needed to for self-worth, but he actually made me feel human and normal. And so it's cool stuff. I have a bunch of other stuff, but basically I just, another one I really liked is the only one who can take care of and understand oneself is you.
Yeah.
And I think that is great. I think that is just great. This episode is just in my book it's amazing. I really love it. I've watched it 3 times in prep for this and I cried every single time.
Yeah.
I think and again, just because I love it does not negate, I think, the very valid criticisms people could have with this sharp turn in, like, the direction, the artistic vision, everything. Like, I get it. Yep. I do. But, fuck, if it is not a great, insightful look into flawed characters, confronting their flaws, and offering... A lot of the time I hear people say, like, oh, this show just tells you if you're depressed, like, don't be depressed anymore, idiot. And I'm like, I could maybe see how you could get it from the way it's worded, but I think it's more so saying pain is a human inevitability.
Yeah.
You as a human are going to experience pain. However, the way in which you go about confronting that pain will either greatly increase its, toll on you, or it can help you navigate it to a point where you don't feel that pain as severely. And I like how it toys with that idea, because it doesn't offer an absolute solution, but it offers solace in comfort towards those who value you and the value you place in those you care about.
Yeah,
and I
sure.
think that's... I feel like I've ranted and raved. I'm raved. I'm sorry if I...
No,
have...
it's... The thing that... Once again, the thing that I think killed me is what I really wanted to see, like, desperately from this show is...
Kensuke and Toji.
And
where they are.
Toji's goodbye. No.
Yes.
The show, I feel like, in retrospect now, spun its wheels a lot of times, and then had to play catch up really fast, and had, like... There were a few episodes in this show that did nothing but, like, absolutely answer questions and push plot.
Yeah.
And I just would have rather seen them slow down and, like, I want to know, like, exactly what were in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yeah. I want to know, like, who those characters from Zele were, how they were formed. I want to know just more, like, for instance, the Adam Lilith thing. I want them to start setting up the Adam and Lilith sides way early and tell me why I should care about either of them. Because by the time it gets to the end... Unless you've maybe seen the show before to understand some of those Zele sequences, you really don't know or have a reason to care about whether it's either one of them.
Well, and they don't really even explain how to trigger the human instrumentality at all. Other than, like, I know how they trigger it, and I know why Sele, Gendo, like, have different methods of getting to that goal. Yeah. But they don't tell you.
Right.
So you're just kind of like...
Yeah.
So Shinji killed Karu, and then...
Well, that's what's shitty is, like, they have so... I think back to, like, there's a few episodes in the beginning, and these are necessary episodes at the time to work out, like, who the characters are. Where they're just, like, one-off Angel episodes.
Yeah.
The episode starts, it has a fun beginning, and Angel shows up, they have to work together, maybe shit goes wrong in the battle, but they end up defeating it. And that's really all that happens in the plot. When, like, I wish that they would have spent more time...
On Jet alone.
On Jet alone. I want to know what those guys are.
Yeah, what the fuck happened? Are they in the human instrumentality? They have to be.
They have to be.
Is Jet alone a part of the instrumentality?
That's all that's left.
God, I hope so.
So, I don't know. I want to see
the Earth is barren. It's just Jet alone.
No one to stop me now.
I'm gonna nuke.
The other thing is I feel really bad that Kaoru gets about 15 minutes of airtime.
Yeah.
And he really, I think, could have deserved at least half of episode 25, too.
Just wait until we watch the Rebuild movies, dude.
I know.
I'm telling you, that's what's actually... As we've talked about this, I'm kind of like, fuck, dude. Hideki Anno really got, like, fucking easy pickings on... Because like you said, they set it up, like, multiple timelines. The Rebuild is a complete reimagining. And then End of Evangelion is what they were going to go for.
Yep.
And then we got this. So the guy really got to say, fuck it. I'm doing two different endings in a different timeline, fuckers.
Yeah.
And you're going to like it.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, that's my gripe. I wish that the show... You know, it's funny because the show took so much time to deal with character shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost wish that they took out a bunch of the early angel fights and just gave us information on the shit that would be important at the end, like Adam and Zele and, you know, the Human Instrumentality Project and the Dead Sea Scrolls and, like, stuff that just never gets answered.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess, you know, really if they're all giving their souls kind of to that one person to ascend, there really is no need for, like, an aftermath episode, which is kind of what I wanted 26 to be.
Yeah.
But they just didn't make it clear enough that that was truly what's happening. So I guess that would be my gripe, now that I've seen the ending of the original show, of how I would have maybe have changed some things to get to that point. Because I feel like they did such a good... Like, this show has probably the best build-up of any animated show I've ever seen.
Oh, hands down.
Like, the best build-up just for the ending to be, like, unnecessarily divisive.
Yeah.
And so it's... I think that... People are pissed off about this ending only because the build-up was, like, so good.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a credit to them that people cared enough to be pissed off.
Yeah.
In the first place. And so I got to give credit where it's due. I don't know if you want to go into the mechs for this episode already, but...
Hey, what would you give it? What's your score? I'm sure you've probably guessed, like, where I fall.
I didn't like this episode.
That's fair.
But I respect this episode, so I gave it a higher score than 25.
Mm-hmm.
I gave this episode 3 out of 10 mechs.
Really? That's fair. And it's in line with how you were feeling, so I get it.
I will say, I did not like this episode as much as I respect this episode. I really do respect the vision and going for your vision. I just didn't want to see this at all. I wanted to see what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Kensuke
and
you know what I
Toji.
mean?
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
I do respect this ending. I just did not like it.
That's fair.
And thank God they knew that. So they made stuff just for me.
Yeah, so if it makes you feel better, we can watch episode 24. Because End of Evangelion, I shit you not, takes place right after episode 24.
That's what I want.
So I'm curious to see if you'll like this other ending better.
Do people not?
People, that's the thing. And what's really interesting is it's very rare with shows that you get to pick which ending you like more. I personally enjoy this ending more. But then again, I also just ranted for about 30 minutes straight on like the philosophical and mental like implications of it. But at the same time, I get where you're coming from, and that's what this other, episode addresses. There's also some fucking bitchin' action scenes.
Dope. Well, let me ask you this, actually. I meant to ask you this earlier, just to delay your mech rating.
Yeah.
The scenes where it's really digging into the instrumentality part about essentially becoming one to ascend, right? And that whole idea that, we can only do this, if we all work together through instrumentality to... What do you think, like, metaphorically that's saying? Because, like, I kind of understand it, like, Shinji. Like, how they're fixing Shinji and, like, Asuka and these characters. And they're not even fixing them. They're just, like, showing them that, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with it. But, like, what do you... The human instrumentality, like, the show's, like, plot goal for that.
I think...
Do you think that has any deeper meaning, or what?
I always have just taken it as... I think it's a... commentary saying that if united as one, like, humanity can really serve each other well. Because the whole idea is instrumentality allows for, the strengths of others to help the weaknesses of others, and vice versa. And I think that speaks to a bigger narrative of, if we weren't melded as one, the idea that there are people out there that can help you navigate the weaknesses that you feel are ailed by, and you can help others with the strength you have that they may not. So I feel like that's just the... Okay. But outside of that, I don't...
So piggybacking on that, I like to think that in episode 24, Kaoru, as the final angel, right, he shows up.
Yeah.
Basically to destroy the Lilith. And in his...
But he stops.
Right. In his conversations with Shinji, and in his, battle with Shinji, he sort of learns that humanity really is deserving of a chance, that the Lilith have essentially transcended their problems, and that they can beat the issues that they have.
Yeah. And
so then for humanity then to take that win that he's given them, essentially, because essentially he
well, that's the thing. I don't know if instrumentality can be viewed as a loss.
Well, I just mean like Kaoru being defeated.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is Kaoru's choice. That he allowed himself to be defeated. That's the loss.
Oh.
And it's kind of beautiful that he sees that moment, that like spark in humanity, that
through Shinji,
that they can be better.
Yeah.
And so he basically sacrifices himself, and humanity does good on it by joining together to essentially
ascend as a race
in the name of like self-healing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of a beautiful story.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that it's not like as obvious.
Yeah. And I think that's why it shows such a disconnect from how 24 ends to how 25 and 26 begin.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge tonal shift.
Right. But that beat of that like beautiful story of like Kaoru's sacrifice for humanity and humanity doing good on that.
And that's why he's like, you have to kill me, otherwise I'm destined to...
But I feel like that's what you would lose by not getting this ending.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the shame of it.
Yeah.
Is you're sacrificing, like I mentioned, it's that fine line. You're sacrificing that really personal ending for like something that you think you want to see. And that's where I'm at with this, is I got to the end of this show, and I think that I really want to know more about this shit and do that. But we'll see if in reality I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that's totally fair, and I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts end up being.
So what'd you give this? You give this 10 out of 10 max?
I gave it a 10 out of 10.
Good on you, buddy.
In my
I knew you would.
In my eyes, like, I remember my first watch through of this show. I personally was going through just a bit of a rough patch, and on first watch there wasn't a whole lot that really struck me until Shinji just outright says, "I hate myself."
Yeah.
And at that time, I was navigating feelings of like, yeah, there are a lot of things I don't like about myself, but the congratulations scene gets me every time, because the lead up to that where Shinji goes, hey, like, I do have worth, like, I do love myself, like, I deserve to exist, I'm here, and he's surrounded by all of the people that saw that the whole time, and that made me look around at the people that have always seen the best in me even when I don't, and I just think that there's something really, really special about that. And so that's why, like, I think it's super ballsy to take an action-oriented, conspiracy-laden, like, sci-fi, dystopian, show, and have the final message be like, hey, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And so that to me is the reason why I'm like, yeah, this is a great ending. And it doesn't, by any means, I love End of Evangelion. I think it's great, but if I were to choose, I would just choose this one.
Nice.
But that's why I'm also very adamant if you did not like the TV series ending, I'm not going to sit here and sit you down and make you understand why it's good or why you should like it more than the other. Because that's the beauty of media and anything is your interaction and what you take away from it is always going to be different.
Well, like, I guess, like, yeah, just to, like, reiterate my point on this is...
And I'm not insinuating that you're saying you dislike it or anything. I hope I'm not coming across that way.
No, I actually like the show a lot.
Yeah.
The issue that I had in my brain while I was watching this was what I wanted was answers from the last episode.
Yeah.
And what I got was, like...
introspection.
Yeah, and, like, curiosity as to what the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
And, like, I got this, like, very Kingdom Hearts ending of, like...
Friendship.
Turns out all my friends are a piece of my heart. And I just needed to look in my heart to find the truth. And it's like, fuck. Like, that makes perfect sense for Shinji. I've just played Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
So I've seen that story before.
Yeah. And keep in mind, this came out in the late 80s, early 90s, so people didn't have that yet.
Yeah.
No, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that just means that, you know, HiroBabble will return.
Yeah.
For End of Evangelion. And another series?
You'll have to wait and find out, folks.
Yeah, we're going to tease it on our Facebook and YouTube, so be sure to be watching your socials for some little hints at what might be next.
That's right.
But on a more serious note, we're closing in on 600 plays across just podcast listens alone. We started this out of just two friends wanting to talk about a shared interest, and by that I mean I really loved anime and I wanted to share it with Spencer. And the best part is, we were just saying last week, is that it's made time for us to hang out and talk about stuff, and we're just really glad that people have even tuned in at all to listen.
It's pretty cool. We had tried several projects.
Yeah.
And we had actually tried the comic books manga thing together.
Yeah.
To try to both talk about something that neither of us have really delved too much into.
Yeah.
And both get through that. And then one day I was just like, Fern, you're always watching anime, and I can never talk to you about those. Like, why don't we change that?
Yeah.
And so we just found, like, the perfect formula to do it. And I'm glad that we even have, like, one person that listens to it.
Yeah.
Because really, it's a passion project for us as friends.
Totally.
And so to have, a handful of people that have been dedicated in the YouTube comments and, interacting with us on the Facebook group and everything like that, it's been really awesome.
Yeah. And it's just really cool that we get to share a passion with you guys.
Yeah.
And even if we didn't have any listeners, we'd still probably be doing it. But kind of like Spencer said, the fact that you guys tune in and we have a small audience that likes to hear our thoughts is just really great. So
yeah. So yeah, just thank you.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You guys just once again want to let everybody know, you guys reach out to us in a bunch of different spots.
Yeah.
And we could talk about anything, anime related, anything HiroBabble. If you guys want spoilers for what our next show is, too bad. You'll have to hear just like everybody else.
Absolutely. But in case it wasn't obvious, we are going to be covering End of Evangelion and the Rebuild films. We learned a lot from our Christmas special. It's going to be less of like a recap and more of we're just going to share our thoughts on it.
I'd say kind of like this episode.
Yeah.
We didn't really go scene by scene on this one. We kind of just talked.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think we should do for the movies, because, we learned in the Christmas episode that it's tough to recap a movie.
It's in a timely manner while also adding your own thoughts.
Yeah.
But with that knowledge, and for those 6 of you that have watched the Christmas special, we thank you. But, yeah.
Yeah. I want to mention one thing.
Go for it.
I did take the time to tally up all of my scores.
Oh, that's right.
And
for those of you who are listening for the end.
And to get an average. And so what's funny is I started off grading everything like really high, because with no knowledge of anything anime other than like as a kid seeing like a couple episodes of Dragon Ball Z or like Gundam on Adult Swim. You know, really I had no knowledge. So, you know, it's funny to look at the beginning and see me giving like 9s out to like everything.
Yeah.
When maybe now I probably would have given like maybe 8s or 7s. And then some of these later episodes, sort of me grading kind of harsh because the expectation had been built with all those 9s that this show was going to end in a way that I felt like was deserving of a 10. And so I think that it evened out a little bit.
Yeah.
And so what we ended up with, do you want to guess what my final rating was of Evangelion as a whole?
7.5.
That's a 7.5.
Holy shit.
Yeah, nice job.
Damn. Okay.
So that's a really good score when you consider
Absolutely.
that, you know, 7.5 is not only a good rating, that's a really positive rating, but for someone that would never have watched anime if it wasn't for this podcast, I think for the anime community to get a new watcher, that's a good rating.
Oh, totally.
You know, because I easily could have said, this isn't for me, and gone like way lower on everything.
Yeah.
I think when we first started, Fernie probably didn't know which way this was gonna go.
I really didn't, because this isn't like a my first anime type beat.
Yeah.
We really threw you into the deep end, but
So I will say for all the anime fans out there, because I think that's most of our listeners, I will you know, just from watching this, I would rewatch this show.
yeah.
I
same.
would recommend this show.
Yep.
To anybody, and I would also try another show, even if we weren't going to cover it on the show. I would probably try anime again.
Hell yeah.
Because I think the storytelling potential was so strong.
Yeah.
I mean, given, you know, we purposefully picked one of the better shows, but I think it's a good one on the anime community here. You know, I'm happy I watched it.
Yeah. I honestly am completely with you. I would recommend this show. I would rewatch it again easily.
Did you find anything new from rewatching it for like whatever millionth time?
Truthfully, I can't say I necessarily found anything new other than just like some minor like maybe details. Like during the flashback stuff, I like caught things I maybe hadn't seen before. But I think the best part was just hearing your like thoughts and perspectives.
Yeah.
And how you called Ray being a clone from episode 5.
Yeah. I think that my favorite moment was either that, seeing your reaction and your face to when I threw that out there, like, you know, half a year ago, and then to the revelation that Gendo had been wearing those gloves the entire show, and that it came together to me that it's because of what's on his hand. That blew my mind last episode. I absolutely blew my mind. Good times.
Well, hey, this has been the Neon Genesis Evangelion finale. I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer.
And we'll see you next time on HiroBabble.